You're about to discover how a single country, one that most people wouldn't even place in the top 10 of military powers, quietly seized control of more than 65% of the global armed drone market. Turkey didn't just build a drone, it built an empire. The story of how it got there involves a US rejection, a family wedding, crowdfunding campaigns by ordinary citizens, children named after weapons, and a trail of controversy that stretches across 3 continents. Let's start at the beginning, because this story does not make sense unless you understand what triggered it. It is the mid-2000s, and Turkey wants armed drones. Specifically, it wants American ones. The United States has the MQ-9 Reaper, one of the most lethal unmanned combat aerial vehicles on the planet. Turkey asks to buy them. The United States says no. Washington worries about how Turkey plans to use these weapons. Turkish officials have made it clear they want to target Kurdish insurgent groups, both inside Turkey and across its borders. United States officials see potential human rights violations written all over that plan, so they shut the door. Now, if you are Turkey, you have 2 options. You accept the rejection and move on, or you decide to build your own. Turkey chose the second option, and that single decision changed the global arms market forever. The company that would make it happen was already in existence, though you would never have guessed its future from its origins. Baykar Makina was founded in 1984 by a man named Özdemir Bayraktar. It was not a defense company. It was a CNC precision machining supplier. Think automotive parts, engines, pumps, spare components. The kind of unglamorous manufacturing work that keeps an economy running but never makes headlines. Özdemir had 2 sons, Haluk and Selçuk. Haluk studied industrial engineering at one of Turkey's top universities and then completed his master's at Columbia. Selçuk went even further. He graduated from Istanbul Technical University, earned a master's degree in unmanned aircraft from the University of Pennsylvania, and then got a doctorate in robotic control systems from MIT. When Selçuk returned to Turkey in 2007, he suspended doctoral studies at Georgia Tech to come home and take over as Baykar's chief technology officer. He was going to build Turkey's first indigenous combat drone. Here's where the story gets politically interesting. In 2016, Selçuk Bayraktar married Sümeyye Erdoğan, the daughter of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. That marriage transformed Baykar from a promising defense startup into a company with a direct line to the highest office in the country. Critics argue that the company owes its meteoric rise to this connection, that President Erdoğan personally promotes Baykar drones during foreign visits, and that deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars flow from those meetings. Supporters counter that the technology speaks for itself. You can decide where the truth lies, but you cannot ignore the significance of that relationship. Now let's talk about the drone itself. The Bayraktar TB2 made its maiden flight in August 2014. By December 2015, Baykar published footage of a successful missile test firing from the platform. And here is the number that changed everything. The TB2 costs approximately $5 million per unit. You might think that sounds like a lot, until you compare it to the competition. The American MQ-9 Reaper runs about $20 million. The Advanced Protector RG Mark I costs around $28 million. The TB2 comes in at roughly 1/6 the price of a Reaper. For countries with limited defense budgets, that is not just a discount. That is access to a capability they never thought they could afford. And the TB2 is not some stripped-down bargain bin product. It works. It works devastatingly well. The first major proof came in 2020 during the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Azerbaijan deployed TB2 drones against Armenian forces, and the results were staggering. The drones destroyed Armenian artillery positions, T-72 tanks, BMP infantry fighting vehicles, BM-30 Smerch, multiple launch rocket systems, and critically, 9 OSA and Strela 10 air defense systems. You read that right. The drones took out the very systems designed to shoot them down. The war lasted 44 days. Azerbaijan won decisively, and military analysts around the world pointed to the TB2 as the difference maker. That same year, Turkish drones proved themselves in Libya and Syria. During Operation Spring Shield in March 2020, TB2 drones struck Syrian army targets in coordinated attacks that virtually blinded enemy radars and neutralized Panzer and Buk air defense systems. Analysts called it a tactical game-changer. But it was Ukraine that turned the TB2 into a global icon. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, Ukraine already had TB2s in its inventory. And in those chaotic early weeks, when Russian forces were pushing toward Kiev in massive convoys, the TB2 found its moment. By mid-March, analysts confirmed nearly 60 vehicle kills credited to the drone, including tanks, supply trucks, and air defense units caught on highways with little protective cover. Strike videos flooded social media. The footage was grainy, shot from altitude, but you could see the precision. A Russian convoy, stationary, unaware. A flash, then nothing. The TB2 became more than a weapon in Ukraine. It became a symbol. Ukrainians wrote songs about it. The word Bayraktar became a battle cry. And here's a detail you probably will not believe: Ukrainian parents started naming their newborn children Bayraktar. Then came the crowdfunding campaigns. Citizens in Lithuania raised 5.9 million euros in just 3 days to buy Ukraine a TB2. Poland launched its own campaign. Ukraine did too. And in a move that was equal parts brilliant marketing and genuine goodwill, Baykar responded by donating at least 20 TB2s free of charge to these campaigns. The company said, "You do not need to pay. You already showed your support. Now you should know that the TB2's dominance in Ukraine did not last forever." As Samuel Bendit from the CNA research organization explained, the TB2 was most successful in the early stages of the war when Russian air defense and electronic warfare were relatively disorganized. As Russia adapted, the TB2's role shifted, but by then, the marketing job was done. Every military procurement officer on the planet had seen what a $5 million drone could do. And the orders started pouring in. Baykar has signed export agreements with 36 countries. 34 of those are for the TB2 and 11 are for the larger, more advanced Bayraktar Akinci. The customer list reads like a tour of global geopolitics: Poland, Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Morocco, Ethiopia, Mali, Albania, Kenya, Kuwait, Bangladesh, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Poland became the first Central European NATO member to acquire TB2s, purchasing 24 systems and fully integrating them into NATO's logistics infrastructure. By late 2024, the TB2 had entered the inventories of 6 NATO member countries and 4 European Union member countries. The financial numbers tell the story of exponential growth. Baykar's exports hit $1.18 billion in 2022. They jumped to $1.8 billion in 2024. And in 2025, the company set a new record at $2.2 billion in exports, with 88% of its total $2.5 billion in revenue coming from international sales. On the CPRI rankings of the world's top 100 arms companies, Baykar climbed from 76th place to 69th in a single year. Its revenue increase was the largest among all 100 companies on the list. Behind Baykar, Turkey's broader defense industry has exploded. More than 3,500 firms now operate in the Turkish defense sector, employing roughly 100,000 people. Turkey's total defense exports exceeded $7.2 billion in 2024, and through November 2025, they were already up 30% from the previous year. The Bayraktar brothers themselves became Turkey's highest individual taxpayers, with Selçuk paying 1.95 billion Turkish lira and Haluk paying 1.68 billion Turkish lira. As CEO Haluk Bayraktar put it, "We focus on being the best in technology, not making money. Sales come naturally." But here's where you need to confront the darker side of this story, because you can't talk about Turkey's drone dominance without talking about where these weapons end up and what they do when they get there. Turkey's export policy is fundamentally different from Western arms sales. Unlike the United States or European nations, Turkey imposes no strings on its military sales. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said in 2021, "If a country buys them from us, they are no longer Turkish." That statement tells you everything about the philosophy. Once the deal is signed, Ankara considers its responsibility over. For buyer nations, this is the appeal. A Malian military officer said it plainly, "With Turkey, we have a speed we don't have elsewhere, not even in Russia or China. But this speed and lack of conditions have had devastating consequences." Between November 2021 and November 2024, the organization Drone Wars UK recorded 943 civilian casualties in Africa from armed remote-controlled aircraft. In Ethiopia, Turkish officials confirmed that multiple agencies had approved granting the Ethiopian military permission to deploy armed drones in domestic conflicts. A 2022 Washington Post investigation found that munitions used in a drone attack on a primary school in Tigray, filled with women, children, and elderly men, were components of Turkish-made Bayraktar products. At least 59 civilians were killed and dozens more injured. In Nigeria, Turkish-made drones were used to strike a civilian rally in December 2022, killing 85 people. These are not isolated incidents. They are the predictable result of a deliberate policy choice. When you sell advanced weapons to governments engaged in internal conflicts and you ask no questions about how they will be used, you are making a calculation. Turkey has decided that strategic influence and export revenue outweigh the reputational and humanitarian costs of accountability. There is also the component dependency issue. For years, the TB2 relied on Western parts, including Canadian Westcom electro-optical systems. In 2020, during the Nagorno-Karabakh War, Armenian forces shot down a TB2, and the wreckage revealed the Canadian components. Canada immediately halted exports to Turkey. Some U.S. lawmakers have pushed to crack down on Turkey, arguing it exploits its NATO membership to obtain key parts from Western manufacturers and then exports the finished weapons to countries those Western nations would never sell to directly. Turkey's response has been to accelerate indigenization, developing domestic alternatives to every foreign component. And this brings you to the next chapter of the story. Because Baykar isn't resting on the TB2's success, it's building something far more ambitious. The Bayraktar Kızılelma, named after a mythical concept in Turkish culture representing an unattainable ideal, is the world's first unmanned fighter jet. Let that sink in. Not a drone. An unmanned fighter jet. It's a single-engine, stealth-capable, jet-powered, artificial intelligence-driven multi-role combat aircraft. It carries an AESA radar, the same type of advanced radar found in fifth-generation manned fighters. It can fire beyond visual range missiles. On November 30, 2025, the Kızılelma became the first unmanned fighter jet in history to validate a beyond visual range engagement capability. It has a maximum takeoff weight of 8,500 kilograms, a payload capacity of 1,500 kilograms, and can fly for over 4 hours. It also performed the world's first autonomous close-formation flight, and it pulled off a barrel roll, making it the first unmanned combat aerial vehicle to successfully execute one, along with an autonomous spin recovery maneuver. Selçuk Bayraktar has announced that the Kızılelma will enter military inventory and begin operations in 2026. Meanwhile, the TB3, a carrier-capable variant, made history on November 19, 2024, when it became the world's first unmanned combat aerial vehicle to successfully take off and land on a short runway vessel, the TCG Anadolu. Baykar is also building a manufacturing plant in Ukraine, expected to be operational by August 2025, with a capacity to produce approximately 120 drones per year. And in December 2024, the company acquired Italian aerospace manufacturer Piaggio Aerospace, followed by a cooperation agreement with Italian defense giant Leonardo in March 2025. Turkey's drone industry is embedding itself into the European defense industrial base. You should also know that these drones are not only used for war. During the devastating February 2023 earthquakes in Turkey, 42 TB2s were deployed, flying 2,417 hours to support search and rescue operations. The platform has proven crucial in forest fire detection, reducing intervention response times from 45 minutes to just 11 minutes. By December 2024, the TB2 had accumulated 1 million total flight hours globally. So where does this leave you? You are looking at a company that went from making car parts to dominating the global armed drone market in less than 2 decades. A company that is 3 times larger than its closest American competitor. a company that holds an estimated 60% market share on its own, and whose home country controls 65% of the global UAV market. Turkey's drone story is about what happens when a country gets rejected by its allies and decides to go it alone. It is about the power of price disruption, about offering lethal capability at a fraction of the cost. It is about political connections and state support accelerating private industry. It is about the intoxicating appeal of no-strings-attached arms deals. And it is about the human cost that comes when advanced weapons flow to conflict zones without oversight. You can admire the engineering. You can marvel at the business model. You can study the geopolitics. But you also have to reckon with the fact that the same $5 million drone that defended Ukrainian cities was used to strike a school full of children in Tigray. That is the full picture of how Turkey conquered the global drone market. The question now is not whether Turkey can maintain its dominance. With the Kizil Elma entering service, new factories in Ukraine, acquisitions in Italy, and a customer list that grows every quarter, the answer to that seems clear. The real question is what the world does about it. Because cheap drones with big impact do not just change markets, they change wars. You are living in the era where that change is happening right now.